The first thing I'd like to do in this tutorial is to show you how to change one of the options that display the variables whenever we go about using any sort of command. Let me first of all go up to Analyze, come down and choose Descriptive Statistics, and choose Frequencies. And I could have chosen any statistical command to demonstrate this, but you notice the way in which the variables are displayed here for us to choose from. This box to the right hand side of any of our statistical command windows will display the information for the variables that we have in the data set. And you'll notice as we scroll down through this, the variable labels are displayed, not the variable names. Now, that's okay as far as the amount of information that's reported, but it's very hard for us to discern which variable is which with a quick check. What we have to do is move our cursor over top of one of the variable labels, and now we notice then when it's there for a few moments, the entire name plus in brackets at the end the variable name that we assigned to it for the data set is displayed. What I would like to do is I would like to display this information such that only the variable name is reported, and it'll be much easier for us to discern which variable is which for any analysis. So let me go ahead and close this box. I'll come up under Edit, and once I click with the left mouse button key on Edit, I'll come down to Options and again click the left mouse button to open it up. And what we see here is a window here, and you notice all the different options we have here for modifying some of the defaults within SPSS. What I want to do is just merely change the way in which the variables are listed when we open up any of our statistical commands to perform analysis. And so what we see here is the General tab is open, which is what we want, and I want to focus on this first box where there are variable lists is indicated. Currently, the default is when you first open up SPSS is it displays variable labels, and these can be rather long. What I want to do is display only the names of the variables, typically 8 characters or less. It's much easier to see what a variable is when we have our list. Also, you notice the order in which it's displayed is the order in which the variables are included in the data file. What I would like to do instead is to report them in alphabetical order. And once I know the variable names, it's much easier for me to scroll down through the list of variables in this data set to find the one that is appropriate. And what we're using is the 2016 version of the General Social Survey, so it's a fairly large data set. So now this is what I want. I'll click OK, and it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to change this option? I'll click OK because I do. And as we go back now in a moment and we click on Analyze menu, come down to Descriptive Statistics and look at Frequencies, you'll notice now what's displayed are the variable names, and those names are now displayed in order. This will make it much easier for us to target the variables that we're most interested in, to find them within the data set for performing statistical analyses. Now that I've just changed the variable list options for SPSS, what I'd like to do is demonstrate how to generate a frequency distribution. I'll come up to the Analyze menu, left mouse button to open that up, and I will come down to Descriptive Statistics. Once I move on top of Descriptive Statistics, you notice it opens up a series of options. I'll come over and I'll just highlight then the Frequencies option. As soon as you move your cursor on top of it, it will turn yellow here. Now to open up this command, left mouse click, and now I'm brought to a Frequencies command box. The list of variables in the data set are provided off to the left hand side, and I can scroll down through them. You'll notice here, once we identify a variable, we'll hit the arrow key arrow button to bring it over to the variable list, and this variable list is where we put the variables that we want to perform analysis on. We cannot type the names here. What we have to do is find the name, highlight it, and once it's highlighted, then click the arrow button to bring it to this list. Now we can bring over more than one variable at a time. So if you click on one, go down to, let's say, the last variable in a series that you want to bring over for performing the frequency command, hold down the shift key, and while you're holding it down, click with the left mouse button to highlight that entire range. And then what I simply can do is click on this arrow button to bring it over. If I want to instead highlight a couple of variable names but they are not next to one another, I click to highlight the first one, I move the cursor down to the second one, and now holding down the control key, I will click the left mouse button again, and it highlights then that next variable. Keeping that held down, I'll click maybe on a third variable. And so holding down the shift key will allow us to, and clicking at another variable will allow us to identify and bring over a range of variables at one time, or instead using the control key, what I'm able to do now is highlight several different variables. But I don't want any of those variables at this point. What I'd like to do though is come down to the variable respondent's belief in what the Bible represents. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I know that variable name is Bible. I'll scroll down, finding the B, so I just went past it. Right there I see Bible is reported. Click my left mouse button to highlight it. Click on the blue arrow button to bring it over. And now this is the variable that we'll perform the analysis on. Presently what you'll see is a check is put in the box next to display frequency table. That's the default when we open this up. We also though can generate a series of the commands which we won't use at this point in time, but if we click on the statistics button, we notice that we can also generate a variety of our measures of central tendency and dispersion, as well as percentile and skewness and kurtosis statistics. We can also then generate charts, bar charts, pie charts, and histograms. And we'll leave it at that. There's some other options here that we won't go through. But for right now, all I want to display are the frequency tables. With that box checked, we simply click OK. And you notice here, first of all, the frequency output, and over here off to the left-hand side of our screen, this is where it will list all of the output for all the commands that are executed within a particular session. So it indicates it generated executed the frequency command on the data set we have, GSS 2016, and you notice it indicates the path name where I have that saved, that data set. The statistics, the first box here provides just basic information about the variable. First of all, the label for the variable, feelings about the Bible. The N indicates number of cases. You notice there are two rows here, valid number of cases and missing number of cases. What valid refers to are the number of respondents in the survey, in the data set, that have a valid response to that question, and missing indicates those who were asked the question in the survey that do not have a valid response. Now as we go down below it, what we'll see in the box below, feelings about the Bible, this is actually our frequency distribution. We notice the responses, Word of God, it's the inspired Word of God, a book of fables, or something else other. We notice that the missing responses are don't know or not appropriate. Now all total, in terms of the number of valid responses, those that offered either Word of God, inspired Word of God, it is a book of fable, or it's something else, there were 2,830 individuals who offered that response in the survey. We see then that 21 people indicated they did not know, and for 16 people that question was not appropriate. So in that case, we see 37 cases have missing information for the variable. All total, the 2,830 valid responses, add to that the 37 missing cases, or cases with missing responses to this question, we see we have 2,867 cases in the data set. Now, next to the frequency or what we see under the first column, frequency, 911 individuals responded it's the Word of God, 1,252 indicated it is the inspired Word of God, 625 indicated it's a book of fables, and 42 indicated that it's something else. So that's our frequency distribution right there. Now what we will do is we report the frequency column for valid responses in total. We tend not to report then missing responses to a question for when we're reporting the results of an analysis. In the column next to frequency is the percent, and what this percent indicates is the percent of respondents who offered a particular response divided by the entire number of individuals in the survey, and that's both valid and missing responses. So the 31.8% is found by taking 911 divided by 2,867. The 43.7% is found by taking the 12,052 divided by 2,867. And we notice here then that in the survey, 98.7% of individuals offered valid responses. Now we tend not to report that percentage data. Instead, we tend to report the information next to it, the valid percent. And what this valid percent is taking the frequency for a given response, dividing it by the total number of respondents that offered a valid response. So for finding the 32.2% for the Word of God under the valid percent column, it would be the 911 respondents that indicate the Bible's the valid Word of God, or the Word of God, divided by 2,830. The 44.2% below that is found by taking the 1,252 respondents that indicated it's the inspired Word of God, dividing by 2,830 valid responses. Then the 22.1% under the valid percent category, a column, is found by taking the 625 divided by 2,830. And lastly, the 1.5% for other in the valid percent column is found by taking the 42 offered that response divided by the 2,830 respondents that offered valid responses. And you notice then that those four values, those four valid percents, add up to 100%. So what we tend to report for any percentage distribution are going to be the percents that are listed in the valid percent column. Now next to the valid percent column is a cumulative percent column, which is compiled using the valid percent information, and this would be useful if we have an ordinal variable. But since we do not have an ordinal variable, the cumulative percent response information here is not appropriate. So what we'll notice then is that SPSS will generate output regardless of what the level of measurement is that we're working with for a given command, in this case the frequency command. And then we have to discern which of that information is appropriate for the data that we have, for the level of measurement of the variable we're working with. But this is where we generate and how we generate frequency distributions and how we find the frequency, valid percent, and cumulative percent that we would report for any sort of analysis in a table.